please the court? Counsel, ladies and gentlemen, Your Honor, June 30th, 2025 was the worst day in Kelsey Fitzsimmons' life. Her whole world imploded. Her fiancé betrayed her. Her baby was being taken away. She was going to lose her house, her job. There was an incredible confluence of tragedy that was visited upon her that day. That day was about her, and she decided in the midst of what you saw testified to here, she decided to end her life. Pat Noonan, when he came back up those stairs, Your Honor, walked into a suicide in progress. That gun was nowhere near him. That gun was already pointed at Miss Fitzsimmons' temple by Miss Fitzsimmons. She was a couple steps into the room. Officer Noonan, a gung-ho cop, highly trained, a SWAT guy, he'd already been ginned up all afternoon by the insane, ludicrous statements of Justin Elaine. He had that in his head. He walked in, and like all of us are susceptible to, he made a mistake. He shot too quick. He reacted too quickly. And instantly, he realized that he had to adjust the narrative. And that was easy, to just add 6 words to the equation, Your Honor. He said, words to the effect, she pointed the gun at me. 6 words. What did those words do at that time period? Those words made him the victim. Those words made him the hero. And those words, most important, made him untouchable. Those words were a defense for his future, his life, his reputation, and they were conveyed to a very willing audience. His colleagues, his brothers, his family, the investigators on the case. So that's really what happened here, Your Honor, and it is a tragedy, and it is something that should not result in any further harm to Ms. Fitzsimmons. This should be over. This should be an acquittal, Your Honor. I want to talk to you about a few of the elements that I know you're going to be concerned about. So, first thing I want to talk about, Judge, is the lack of motive and the lack of intent. Because when it gets down to brass tacks, you know, I know that you're going to look at the law, you're going to look at the credibility determinations, and you're going to make a judgment. And here, this case fails. The Commonwealth ship founders on the rocks of lack of motive and lack of intent. Let's talk about motive. Everything in life is motive. And it's ironic that, you know, us lawyers always say, oh, you don't need to prove motive. But you really kind of did. It's meant not be an element of the crime, but motive is everything in this business, Your Honor. Let's look at the motive or lack of motive. Fitzsimmons and Noonan are colleagues. They have already bonded over shared tragedies, shared experiences. They were okay with each other. They were friends. Kelsey thought well of him, and she thought he thought well of her. She knows he has a family. She knows who his family is. She's not going to harm this guy. She knows, Your Honor, that he didn't do this to her. She knows that Justin Elaine did this to her. And she's, probably most important, she's been in those shoes before, serving restraining orders. She knows she's just a messenger. She knows he's just a messenger. This was the worst moment of her life, and she wanted to end her life. And how did she want to do it? She wanted to do it alone. She didn't want to involve these officers because she knew this was a selfish act. She came in here, and ironically, the most credible evidence that came into this case, Your Honor, was from the one person that didn't have to testify. And she came in here and she chose to testify. And she waived her rights and she testified. And she showed, Your Honor, that she's a moral person. She's a caring person. You'll sit down and you'll deliberate, and you'll be drawing the inevitable conclusion that Kelsey Fitzsimmons is a moral person. You have to contrast that with the callous treatment of this case from the other side. Hey, we're going to go serve an order on Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Her ex-fiancé got an order on her, on Kelsey. Let's go serve an order. The answer, sounds good. Let's go. Talks to his neighbor. Oh yeah, I'm the shooter. I'm the shooter. She's a whack job. So you have to take these credibility determinations into account. And I know you're a gentleman, but you have to get down to brass tacks on who's who here. What else shows you that she's a moral person? She doesn't want to involve these guys. She's trying to get rid of them. She says, oh, the guns are over here, so she can go where they really are. She keeps trying to give Houston and Noonan baby things to bring downstairs. She's trying to get rid of them. She's trying to get them away from her. She wants to do this on her own. She doesn't want to have some sort of situation where she gets shot by one of her colleagues and friends. It's understandable because she's a moral person. She waits for her chance. She gets to her room. There's a distraction downstairs. She doesn't know what's going on because she's focused on the job she's trying to do here. The tragic, awful thing that she's trying to do to herself. That's how you know she's telling the truth, Your Honor. You saw in the room, and I'll show it to you in a minute, the chest that she got the gun from, it's a chest on the floor. It has one of those pretty substantial lids that you would have to flip up to get the gun, locate the gun, pick the gun out of the 4 guns, and stand up. If Noonan was standing right there in the door frame, that would have never happened. All those events, that little series of events, he would have been able to stop it. He would have stopped it. It tells you that he's down the steps. He was interested in the distraction downstairs. He saw Kelsey folding some baby clothes, getting baby things ready. His attention, it's human nature. His attention was drawn to go back down the stairs. He walked down the stairs 2 or 3 steps, 4 steps, whatever. And Kelsey told you, straight up, that was my chance. And she took it. And she went in the chest, Exhibit 51, Your Honor, I'll show you right now. She went in that chest, flipped up that lid, got the gun, stood up. She told you again, she's a moral person. She tried to keep the gun concealed. She made the motion like this, Your Honor, where she put the gun like this and she kind of walked over here. But she didn't want the police to see her with a gun. She held the gun to her stomach area. She walked to a clear area and she put the gun to her head. And that's what I mean when I say Officer Noonan came back up the stairs, and what did he walk into? He didn't walk into some Rambo woman trying to shoot him in the face. He walked into Kelsey, who you now know a little bit from her testimony. He walked into Kelsey's room, and Kelsey had a gun to her head. And he walked into a suicide in progress room. And the man that had just been holding her baby, that she chose to hold her baby, that she chose to feed her baby, walked into her suicide in progress. The gun was nowhere near Noonan. There was no threat to Noonan. And the law says that you may not, an officer may not use deadly force on someone who is exhibiting a danger only to themselves. And that's offered to Your Honor to twofold, in the sense that it shows that this was not a reasonable use of force, and it shows you that his knowledge of that statute, as he said on the stand, gives him a motive to lie. He knows that this is not a good shooting. He knows this is not a clean shooting. And that gives him a motive here, Your Honor. And like all of us, we all make mistakes. He overreacted and he shot. He had the look on his face, panic, flustered, he shot. He had made a mistake by leaving her there, walked down the steps, a few steps, and that gave her the chance. And when he did this, he knew immediately, Your Honor, that he had to adjust the narrative. Filtered through the legal lens, Your Honor, that tells us that Kelsey had no intent. She had no intent to harm him. There's no assault here because she didn't have the intent to do so. As the fact finder, you can consider everything you said about motive, that she lacked any motive to harm this gentleman. In fact, it was the opposite. She thought well of him. She knew Justin did this to her. She had just trusted him with her baby, and she had tried several times to get these officers away from the situation. No intent to harm him, no motive driving her mindset to do so. Reasonable doubt, burden of proof, Your Honor. Where the evidence supports a reasonable and more plausible alternative, and that's shown here by Kelsey's testimony, it cannot be said that Commonwealth has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt. When there are two plausible versions of what happened, that itself is reasonable doubt. The versions themselves, Your Honor, show reasonable doubt. Kelsey's version rings true. Noonan's version is all over the place. Noonan's version is contradicted by the strong consensus of everybody else in the house. Noonan portrays a couple different stories, but if you want to pick one where it's this drawn-out potential gun battle, where she's backpedaling, sidestepping, tapping, racking, there's commands going on, that takes time. It takes time for me even to say it. Never mind do it. And that's belied by everything everybody else in the house says. Everyone else says, Kelsey no, 2 shots in quick succession, bam, bam. That does not fit with what Noonan said happened. So, on that alone, Your Honor, as a fact finder, I suggest that your duty is accomplished quickly, because there are 2 extremely divergent versions of this event. And Noonan's version has changed itself. Noonan's version is inconsistent with who you now know Kelsey is as a person. It's self-serving. And like I said, it makes him untouchable. And when you judge it against everyone in the house, he's the only one with the Rambo story. Everyone else has what Kelsey says. He walks into a suicide in progress, he sees it, he reacts, Kelsey no, bam, bam. Brain freeze, mistake. Has to cover it up immediately. What else do we have? You know, when you're a fact finder, you want to look for corroboration. What's the corroboration on either side of this thing? Or lack of corroboration, which is what really it is here. You know, the big one, the big elephant in the room is that this department has no body cameras. We wouldn't even be here if they had body cameras. There's no evidence other than people's words. He said versus she said. That's oftentimes, almost all the time, not a good place to start for the Commonwealth. How many of these guys didn't do reports? What's up with that? Why didn't Trooper Strong put the body camera video on the witness he's interviewing? There's no science. The testimony of everyone else in the house shatters his narrative. Kelsey Fitzsimmons has been blessed. She should be dead 2 times over. By her own hand and by the hand of Officer Noonan, who shot her. She's blessed. She's here today, and she has a new lease on life. Maybe that's why the investigation is what it is. And maybe that's why Neenan's story is so sloppy, because nobody expected her to be here today to tell her truth. But she is your honor. And as the fact finder, I want to respectfully ask you to consider the evidence, consider the lack of motive, the lack of intent, the inconsistencies. The credibility contest is firmly in her camp. She came in here and she told you what happened. Unvarnished truth. And I ask you to find her not guilty.